Jalen McMillian. Oh, yes. He's not just a good dancer. He's also a good receiver as well. 6'1", 197 pounds. He's definitely the small of the players there from Washington there. 22 years old. Runs a 4.47 40, by the way, guys. So not a bad speed there. Last year, 11 games, 45 yards, 559 yards, 5 touchdowns, 3 rushes for 30 yards and a touchdown. Now, you might look at that stat and go, that's a bad year. Goddamn. He really didn't play a lot of the weeks, even though he dressed and he'd just be kind of going out there as a decoy. He had 0 catches from week 4 to week 7. He had just 5 receptions for 26 yards in week 8. So you can do the math, and Rob knows I love doing the math. I do love doing the math.
He's not good at it, but he loves it.
In the other 6 games, that means he had 533 yards. Times that by 2. The math is not difficult. That's 1,066 in 12 games, which would be a typical season at that point there. So his year is not as bad as the numbers look when you actually look at what he did overall. And again, once he got healthy, he went right back into that number 2 role. He took that right back from Polk. He just spot out took that. So, again, had a knee issue there. Wore a pretty thick brace for part of the season as well there. So, again, this is another guy that we talked about medical stuff. I'm assuming when we talk about these guys, everything medically clears. We don't know that. Only guys that do are them and the NFL teams out there. You know, we don't get that kind of information there. Last year, 22 there, 79 receptions, 1,098 yards, 9 touchdowns, 1 rush for 2 yards. So back-to-back 2 solid seasons to that point when you look at the per game as opposed to what he did for the year there this past year. Pro-wise, speedy, good body control, great route runner, and also great at tracking the ball at that point. His hands just seem to be out ready to go when that ball is coming out there. Bad-wise, though, lacks yak, lacks some strength. And again, obviously, a lot of that comes with the size. This is another guy that I think is going to end up probably around that 3rd round range there. But if you're looking for a small, shifty receiver, you could do a whole lot worse than the Jalen McMillian, that's for sure.
I mean, he's also got the framework. He has the potential to put that weight on.
Yeah.
To be a little bit more solid. So, yeah.
Yeah, but you don't want to do that where it takes with his speed, and that's part of that fine line there.
No, I got you. I got you. Like, you go to the NFL, like, he's going to put on 10 pounds.
Like, don't have him hanging out with Kelvin Benjamin, that's for sure.
Yeah, be it with Lacey with Green Bay.
You tight end in no time.
Hanging out at the Golden Corral.
Oh my God! I still can't believe how far down that guy went and how quick he went. But yeah, I mean, again, Washington here, and part of the thing again we have to look at when you look at these guys is you have good quarterbacks in some of these schools as well. Obviously, we'll talk about some LSU guys a little later. We talked about some Texas players at that point. Part of it you have to go okay. Does the wide receiver make the QB? Does the QB make the wide receivers? And that's part of what you have to look at as well in this whole thing there. But to me, when you have 3 guys all excelling, that's pretty impressive. And that tells me that they're good receivers and a good quarterback. And that's why I've been so high on the Washington guys.
This is probably one of the highest wide receivers I have ranked in this draft that a lot of people are still, meh on. And the reason is when you look at the tape, when you look at some of the games in the playoffs, when they needed a catch, when you needed the first down, they went to him. When you needed the possession, they throw it to Rome in the playoffs. But when you needed someone to grab that ball 3 yards before the chains and literally pull 2 corners and a little bit of a linebacker with you for 5, that right there tells me everything that I need to know. And the other side of it, he, just like Rob was saying, his body frame, he can put a little bit more weight on, and he'll still be like the Jackson Smith and Jigba of this draft.
Mm-hmm.
He will have the type of speed. In my opinion, his high side is Jackson Smith and Jigba right now, and his low side at the bare minimum. And this is a name nobody has heard of for a little bit. Will Fuller from the Houston Texans.
Ooh,
When those guys were going at it, like everyone was all D-hop. And then all of a sudden, when Watson needed that extra little bit of burst, it would just be out of nowhere. Those
Randy Watson.
Yeah. And those
Randy Watson
just flying down the field for these random catches. Like he got hit by 3 dudes in the air, came down on his shoulder, got up, threw the ball down for a first down. And we never saw Will Fuller after that again. Yeah. But that is what I see with Jalen McMillian. He is my favorite wide receiver in this draft.
Yeah, like I said, I think that people overlooking, as I said, I think a lot of people look at the numbers. Okay, well, Polk was the number 2 receiver. But I think that Polk is the number 3. And again, if you look at the game-by-game tape at that point, once McMillian got healthy, it's pretty obvious who Washington thought was her second-best receiver as well. So you can't just look at the year stats. I love people to, oh, well, this is the year stats. This is clearly what's going on here. Like, there's a lot more to the tape. That's when you miss guys like McMillian and Burton, the last 2 guys we talked about, and don't realize how good they are. So, yeah. Like I said, that's part of it. And again, the medical has to clear out for this guy. You have to look at those knees and be confident that it's not going to be a long-term problem. Again, when I'm doing this, where we're all assuming that that's going to be no problem. We don't know. We don't have access to that stuff, so we're going to be optimistic.
The best place for him, in my honest opinion, would be on the other side of Amon-Ra St. Brown on the Lions.
That's a good spot.
Interesting. You also wouldn't gamble like the rest of their team, probably.
No.
That's very cool. Womp. Oh, I said it.
Thanks for listening to 2 Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. We appreciate your support.
Thanks so much.